it gets a bit steamy. Not steamy. It gets a bit, well, crazy.
Do you know how many parties I've been to and I'm stuffing my mouth with grapes and everyone's like getting off with each other or doing the most? And this is why every year without fail I do it. COVID happened.
Hello and welcome back to Gobs and Goblets with me, Maddie.
And me, Hannah.
So today we're going to be looking at New Year's traditions from around the world. And the reason that is, well, it's because New Year's is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, between me and Hannah, as we established last episode, we're just not very big Christmas people. However, when it comes to New Year's, it's go hard or go home. And she always goes hard.
And then goes home.
And then goes home. So we thought it'd be a great idea. Last New Year's, we decided to do the Spanish tradition of eating 12 grapes in 12 seconds, which was horrendous. But it inspired this episode. We thought, well, what else is going on globally?
So much.
What's the history of it? And how do people celebrate? So without further ado, we're going to go to our first destination.
Okay, so we're going to start in the Netherlands. Now, in the Netherlands, what they have is something called oliebollen. Now, oliebollen literally translates to oil-fried dough.
Oh, you pay for it.
Oil, yeah. Hence, we didn't make it this episode. But yeah, oil dough balls. So what they're usually made of is flour, salt, yeast, water, your usual cupboard ingredients. Now, pre-19th century, they also used to be known as oil koeken, which means oil cakes. However, in the late 19th century, the term oilbollen was added to, sorry, not oilbollen, oliebollen was added to the Dutch dictionary and it stuck. So that's a bit about what they are. They're also enjoyed in other parts of the world. Other parts have variations. So in France, they have them and they're called croustillons. Oh. And that actually means crispy in French.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you also have, yeah. And in Belgium, you have them as well. And they're mainly enjoyed in the Flemish part of Belgium. And they're called smooterbollen.
Interesting.
So that's my piece in oliebollen.
So we're going to go back to the origins of oliebollen. So the first theory, because we have two for you today, is that Germanic tribes brought them across. Now, as we've established in the birthday cake episode, the Germans, they like their dough, they like their breads. So for them, it became a really popular thing to consume around the time of Yule. Yule is celebrated from the 26th of December to the 6th of January. And in this time period, it gets a bit steamy. Not steamy. It gets a bit, well, crazy. So the Germans had this goddess called Perchta. And now she was a bit wild. She would go flying around during this time period with her evil spirits through the winter's midnight sky. And she essentially, she would try and cut off people's bellies. She would take a sword and she'd slice them off, as the legend goes. So how people combated this, they decided to make lots of fried goods and they'd leave them out for the spirits to eat, and they themselves would eat oliebollen. And the reason they do this is so that the fats would sort of seep out of their body, and when she went to go and slice it, the sword would slide off, essentially. Oh. So it was a form of protection. Nobody wants their belly sliced off, essentially. No. I was thinking earlier, would that kill you?
Most likely, yes.
No, because could you survive that?
Well,
is it just like the top part, or is it all of it? I had so many questions, but not enough time. It's
Someone
been a very
tell us.
chaotic week. Leave it down in the comments below. So the earliest documentation of this was in 1667, and in this cookbook, which is known as the Smart Responsible Cook, it was noted there. There is a Dutch translation, but I thought I'd leave it in English because I would absolutely butcher it. Languages isn't my profession. So yeah, that's sort of like an overview of the tale. But there is another one. So the second theory is actually that Portuguese Jewish immigrants came over in the 15th century, and they brought along with them one of their dishes that they'd have for Hanukkah. And now this dish was kind of like a a fried donut. From there, obviously, people couldn't get enough of it, so it just became part of the New Year's traditions. And there you have the Netherlands.
So now we're flying over to Japan. Now, Japan have a dish called toshikoshi soba. Now, what is this? So basically, it's a bowl of noodles, that's what the soba are, and it's cooked in a dashi broth, and it has green onions on top.
Oh, lovely.
So the reason they have soba noodles, now usually soba noodles are a bit shorter, however for New Year's they deliberately make them longer to symbolise longevity. So soba noodles are made of buckwheat, 100% of buckwheat, and a dashi broth is basically like a very fishy broth. Again, we've talked about umami in our ketchup episodes, it's going to come up quite a lot, but yeah, it's to describe it, it's quite an umami, it's got that umami flavour, so very rich, quite fishy. And I didn't actually know this, but dashi broth forms the base of miso soup.
Oh, interesting.
So the more you know.
I thought it was a soya bean paste.
Well, that's what I thought, but apparently it does, so I believe so. But anyway, so the reason they put the green onions on top, now in Japanese, let me be so for real, Google Translate didn't want to work before the episode, so it's either negi or neji. I'm really sorry, anyone who can help in the comments, please do. But yeah, so green onions are called negi or neji in Japanese. Now the term negu, now this is where it's believed that it came from, actually means like a calm state of mind. So that's why people believe that green onions were put on top to basically bring calmness into the new year. However, it also could have been a play on words. Now negi also means the assistant to the chief priest of a Shinto shrine, but people believe it's the more calm state of mind. Why? Now, depending where you go in Japan, there is loads of variations of the dish and how and when it's enjoyed for New Year's. For example, if you go to some regions in Japan, you have something called nishin soba. Now, nishin translates to herring. Herring is a type of fish. However, the Japanese homophone is also for both parents. So herring fish actually lay a lot of eggs. So people believe that this fish brings prosperity. So that's why that's eaten. Now, if we go to Okinawa, after the reunification with mainland Japan, after the US actually occupied Okinawa, they basically started to go into this tradition as well. However, the noodles, the soba noodles there, are not made with buckwheat. They're made with wheat flour. So this actually changes the texture of the noodle and makes it kind of more chewy and more elasticy, kind of similar to an udon noodle.
Oh, I love udon.
Yeah, I don't actually.
Really? Oh, it's my favourite.
But anyway, that's a bit about toshikoshi soba for you.
Okay, so the time period of this was the Edo time period. This is when it came about, which is from 1603 to 1867. Now, as Hannah's mentioned before, the reason that this happened and that the soba noodles were brought in for a New Year's tradition is because they were long and they were chewy. And this represented the breakage of the last year. So because they could chew it and bite it off, it was like, we're breaking away. Something that was very popular amongst merchants was they had a slightly different type of noodle that they would eat called misoka soba. And they would eat this on the end of every month. And this would then bring prosperity to the next month. However, this slowly changed over time and it started to get replaced with what we now know as toshikoshi soba noodles. One of the reasons it actually got replaced was because of a beriberi pandemic. I was going to say outbreak, but it's not really, where people become extremely deficient in vitamin B1. So this was a really good source of nutrients. So it became very popular and people would eat it to boost their immune system.
Okay, so now we're going to go over to Italy. Now, what is traditionally enjoyed in Italy on New Year's Eve is lentil soup. Now, the reason for this, they believe it brings luck. Why? It's because of the shape of the lentils. Now, they believe the lentils are shaped like Roman coins, and they believe that's going to bring luck, money, and prosperity into the new year. And it's also tend to be enjoyed with cotticino, which is a type of pork sausage. So now we're going to talk about two countries that not only celebrate New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but also celebrate other things about their country on this day and how that relates to food. So now we're going over to Cuba. Now in Cuba, roast pork is it's massively celebrated, whether it be birthdays, anniversaries, whatever, you can expect to find roast pork. So the reason they eat roast pork on New Year's Eve is because they believe it brings good luck. Now, why is this? So It's actually to do with the way animals root. Do you know what that means?
No, not a clue.
I didn't have a clue either. So basically, rooting has to do with when animals are basically searching the ground to find their food. And the term originates from the behaviour of pigs. Why? Because pigs use their feet, they also use their noses to basically look through soil, twigs, leaves, whatever, to find the food they need. So obviously, pig, pork. So yeah, and the reason you're like, well, this still doesn't make sense as to why it brings good luck. Now the reason is because it's basically, it's like you're moving forward into like a better future. Like you're looking for that. Do you know what I mean? You're finding it, you're grinding, you're getting it, you're getting that better future. So that's why they eat roast pork.
So New Year's Eve in Cuba is also celebrated alongside the Cuban Revolution. What is that, you might ask? Well, in 1959, Fidel Castro became the new leader. This is a pivotal moment in history. If you know anything about the Cold War, it's where things all get a bit tense and a bit spicy. Not that they weren't before, but like really the tensions are at a high. So Cuba became the first state in the Western Hemisphere to become communist. So Fidel Castro, his thought process was, I want to distribute wealth amongst the poor. Modern day Robin Hood, or not so modern day, but you get my point. So when he came along, he, implemented all these new rules. It was a bit of a change, and America was like, absolutely not. So then you had the Bay of the Pigs, which is an event that took place where America planned to overthrow Fidel Castro and get a new leader in. He was like, absolutely not. So he hit up the USSR and was like, guys, I need some help. So what did the USSR do? They said, we have some nuclear devices. We're going to plug them right to you. So they did. Obviously, America's now bricking it because they're like, oh my gosh, right on our border, we have things that could quite literally end the world.
Yeah.
The next 13 days are the most tense time for the whole world. You could blow up at any given minute. Nobody wants that thought on their shoulders. So they think, okay, let's go in, take it out. Kennedy's like, no, let's be a bit smarter about this. So what he does is he says, I'm going to put a blockade. We're going to get naval forces involved, and they're going to prevent any shipments of these big bombs so that can't happen. So he does that. And then, everybody's in uproar. The USSR saw this as an act of war, this blockade. They were like, can't be having this. So it all starts to get really, really heated. And then they're like, no, somebody got shot down in a plane. Somebody also, a submarine, they were too far down below. So there's a bomb that went off near them to be like, guys, don't. Anyways, tension ended up being resolved. They were like, what we'll do is you take out the bombs from Cuba, we'll take them away from Turkey and Italy, so there's no threat to Russia. So obviously Fidel Castro wasn't a massive fan of the US, and he was like, I don't really want to be like them. So by 1972, Christmas had been banned because it was something that was prior to this associated with having a high social status and being well off.
Yeah.
And obviously with the communism that he was trying to introduce, that just was something that he wanted to be eradicated, to have this social divide. So there was a 5-year period called the Grey Years. And in this time, there was no celebrations. It just didn't happen. So sad. Kind of reminds me of the Puritans. Sorry if you're a communist. No. Anyway. Moving swiftly forward. Then it was international petitions and sort of involvement that meant that they were able to bring it back. Well, he left power in 2008. And yeah, so since then, New Year's Eve has become more socially acceptable and people kind of do it. But it's more of a thing just to like be around family and be around loved ones and just spend time together. So that's a lovely story of Cuba.
So now we're going to go over to the Czech Republic. Now, their tradition on New Year's Day, so the 1st of January, is also commemorating Czech Restoration Day. Now, this was the day when Czechoslovakia split into Czech Republic and Slovakia. So what do they do as a tradition on this day? They get apples, they cut them in half, and they scrutinise the core. And if you find a star shape in the middle, you can expect happiness in the year. However, if you find a cross, that means less good news. So I wouldn't personally want to do that tradition, because imagine you get a cross. What a not great way to start the year. But yeah, that's what they do there. So next we're going to talk about two countries which actually interlink. So I'm going to start off with France. Now, what France have is they have their dinners, which they called le réveillon. And le réveillon, they have it as your Christmas Eve dinner and also your New Year's Eve dinner. Now, where does the word réveillon come from? So it comes from the French word réveil. Again, as we've established in the previous episode, my French isn't the best. But anyway, réveil means the awakening. Now, the reason it's called this is because they have the dinner post-midnight.
Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense. So with these dinners, they don't have any set things, but what they do is they go all out, and they go out big. Like, we're talking, if you go to a restaurant, you can expect the dinner to be anywhere between 8 to 15 courses.
Still in modern day?
Still in modern day.
Right, off we go to France.
Yeah. And they choose the bougiest foods. We're talking oysters, foie gras, caviar, smoked salmon, Cheez-Its. Just think of the most expensive, luxurious things. That's how the French go out for New Year's Eve.
I love it.
No, I know.
Sounds so exciting.
Yeah, wow. So that's what they have.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Quick, what is foie gras?
So foie gras is actually duck liver, and I think we should do an episode on it because it is actually, I believe, illegal in the UK because of how they treat the ducks.
Oh, that's horrible.
But that is a whole episode within itself.
Only thing that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, I mean, I don't think I'd eat that. But it sounds really tasty.
No, really good. The French are quite big on their foie gras.
No judgment.
No. So New Year's wasn't actually originally celebrated on January 1st in France.
Okay.
They've had several dates throughout the centuries where it was celebrated. So during the 6th and 7th centuries, New Year's Day was actually celebrated on March the 1st.
Bizarre, but kind of makes sense, in my opinion.
Go on, why?
Because, hear me out here, Easter, spring, new life.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
No, because it kind of revolves, so it keeps going. So then they celebrated it on Christmas Day.
Right.
It's like getting a bit closer. Then they celebrated it on Easter Sunday.
Okay.
And that was during the 10th century. So kind of close to, spring and stuff. And then they celebrated it on April 1st. Now, they celebrated it on April 1st up until the 16th century when Charles IX was like, yeah, we got to sort this out. So what did Charles IX do? He basically issued something called the Edict of Roussillon, which basically set New Year's Day to be January the 1st. And it's stuck ever since.
Wow, and it's international as well.
And that's my question. Have I done that research? No. But
had a lot on if you haven't already understood.
But I'm going to look into that and hopefully find that out because it's really interesting.
We'll leave it in the comments below.
Yeah. Also, don't forget, the French, always champagne. Champagne is like crucial in New Year's.
Have we ever had champagne? Have we?
Prosecco. I'm not buying champagne.
Maybe that should be on New Year's.
I think I've had champagne, like once in my life.
I love that for you. Sorry.
Okay, so we're now going to fly over to Spain. Now, in Spain, I do this tradition every year because I am half Spanish. What you do is you have to eat 12 grapes. They give you like 2 or 3 seconds for each grape before the clock strikes 12. So basically what people will do is they will gather in La Puerta del Sol in Madrid, which is like the most famous square, and there's a bell tower there, and like hundreds of people will go and they'll have their grapes ready. And basically, you know how here in the UK we have a countdown, it's like 10, 9, 8. you have the bells in Spain. So it starts off with these 4 bells, and it's like Mario Kart, like beep, beep. It's like you'll get ready, get set, go, you know. So, you know, you got to get ready. I remember once we were in the living room, my grandma went to the toilet, the preliminary bells started coming. Where's that? Abuela, like, hurry up. And so, like, as she's running, I've never seen her run, she starts running, yeah? So we're like, okay, like, you get your grape ready in your hand, you know, because now this is crucial. Do you know why? If you don't finish the grapes by the time the final clock strikes, you're getting bad luck. Now, seriously, people have actually died from this. Not funny, not good.
I thought you meant from the bad luck, no, from the eating
From
grapes.
the eating, people have choked and died. So it is, you could even say, a serious sport. Would I enter it into the Olympics? Quite possibly. It is life or death. So you want to finish them grapes because you want to bring good luck. You might be asking, why 12 grapes? Each grape symbolises luck for every month of the new coming year.
Okay.
So it's like good month every year. So, yeah. So in Spain, it's very traditional to find, it's green grapes. That's the starter. They're green grapes.
Yep.
You look confused
Yeah,
like
no,
that.
sorry, no, it's not the green grapes. I was just still thinking, the luck only comes if you don't die, and people have died from it. But carry on.
Well, if you don't die, you've been lucky, you've survived, and also if you finished all the grapes, it's really quite odd. What people will sometimes do to make it easier to consume the grapes is you can buy them pre-peeled, just to actually be able to swallow them easier. And also in Spain, it's very hard to actually, well, now it's a bit easier, but it's quite hard to find seedless grapes. So you can get grapes with these huge seeds. So some people even go as far as like getting rid of the seeds beforehand, just to reduce, you know, to eat them quicker. And if you can choose smaller grapes, even better. So yeah, the 1 year I didn't do the grapes, and this is why every year without fail I do it. COVID happened. And I'm not saying I'm the reason COVID happened.
You kind of just did.
I beat myself up about it quite a lot because I said the 1 year, every year since, I'm like, I'm never not doing the grapes. I also want to bring this up. On TikTok last year, everyone started eating the grapes under a table, and I was so pissed off. I'm like, why are you eating the grapes under a table? You're not recognizing where the tradition comes from. Why are you doing it in secret? Do you know how many parties I've been to and I'm stuffing my mouth with grapes and everyone's like getting off with each other or doing the most, and I'm like, Happy New Year! Anyway, so the grapes is like, what I'm trying to say is it's vital.
A few minutes later.
Can I continue with the history now, please?
That's no history.
It's
just drama.
Because it's a very dramatic event.
Oh boy.
Swiftly moving forward, we're going to get into the history of it because, man, oh man, I wish I knew this before. It's so interesting. So we're going to have 3 stories. So we're going to go back in time to 1909. So you had wine farmers from the regions Murcia and Alicante. These are in the southeast of Spain. And they had a very bountiful harvest. They had so many grapes that they were like, well, we got to sell these, make some more money. Mm-hmm. So that, although that theory is true, the original story dates back a bit further.
Okay.
So the first ever kind of written publication about the grapes was in January of 1897. And this is when the Madrid press basically published something saying, it is customary in Madrid to eat grapes when the clock strikes 12, to basically let go of an old year and bring in a new year.
And it was mandatory.
Customary.
Customary.
But that's a key word in this, because if you're saying something's customary, it means that it's been happening, right? Like it's a custom, it's tend to happen. So from that, we can assume that it definitely happened in 1896, right, the year before, and probably a few years before that, because we're calling it customary.
I mean, it could have been happening since the birth of Spain, really, and we wouldn't know about it.
I mean, it could have been, but that's not part of my research. So then, we do actually date back a bit further than 1896, because in 1882, you had Madrid's mayor, José Abascal y Caredeno. And basically, he imposed a tax of 5 pesetas. Pesetas was the currency back in the day. Basically being like, people aren't allowed to go and celebrate on the Day of the Kings. The Day of the Kings is January 6th. Mm-hmm. So he put this tax in place basically to stop people going out, getting drunk, causing havoc. So it actually worked. A lot of people stayed home because they couldn't afford that. However, obviously, the wealthy people could afford that, and it meant that they could go out and party. So the working class people were pissed off about this, and rightfully so. So they decided to protest, possibly in the most peaceful way ever. Do you know what they did?
What?
At the time, there was loads of publications coming out in the press and the media about how the upper classes in Germany and France were celebrating New Year's with champagne, France, and with grapes.
Lovely stuff.
So what did the working class people do? They marched on over right to La Puerta del Sol, where it's still the square where it's celebrated today. And as soon as the clock struck 12, they would just eat grapes.
Lovely stuff. And that's your history lesson.
Yeah, and it just stuck.
I love that.
I love that, yeah.
It's a protest, but it was peaceful. Not that all protests should be peaceful. I'm
No.
really going on like tangents today.
Yeah.
And we still do it every year.
And we still do it every year. So, you know, why not try one of these traditions this year?
Which today we will be trying grapes.
We will be racing each other.
Last year it was really quite something to the whole...
I finished my grapes last year.
Yeah, me too.
I usually never finish my grapes.
So is that why you're full of bad luck most years?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one year we actually did it with pieces of orange.
Has
Just
she been very lucky though, actually? You finished them?
No. Yeah, it started lucky and then... Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. We're going to race each other eating grapes.
I thought we just had to get it done before the timer went.
We'll put the bing, bing, and then...
I don't want to start yet.
Okay.
Y ahora, las campanadas.
What move?
Y ahora, las campanadas.
I've still got some in my mouth.
No. Did we just bust that? Yes, we did.
Happy New Year from all of us at Gobs and Goblets.
I hope it's a wonderful next year and it's blessed with many more visits from me and Hannah.
It will be. Cool.
That sounded horrible.
Yum, 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 yum. You can try it if you want.